We get live right now, man. It's going down. Excited for the season. You know, we coming off a playoff win. I mean, you know, we had a couple wins.
Hello and welcome to episode 165 of Diaries, a Milwaukee Bucks podcast presented by us, the staff of Brew Hoop. My name is Riley Feldman, one of your usual co-hosts. Before I introduce my other co-hosts this week, I want to apologize to the Apple Podcast listeners out there. I know last week, for some reason, the RSS feed did not update. I'm still tinkering with it. I'm praying that this episode 165 will hit your feeds tomorrow morning. If not, I will provide some more updates, hopefully over on Brew Hoop. But technical difficulties aside, I am very pleased to be joined by my other usual co-hosts this week, Adam Paris and Kyle Carr. Gentlemen, how are we doing tonight?
Not bad. Daycare's been closed for the last 2 days, so I've been home with the kids for 4 days straight. It's been a wild time. It's a lot crappier when the weather isn't good and being stuck at home with your kids, as opposed to if it's nice outside.
I do not. I don't envy you at all, Kyle, in that scenario. That is one of the things I've enjoyed most about moving to South Carolina, is that there's basically no day goes by that I can't take Haley outside, and it makes it so much easier. I'm doing well. I was just on a weekend trip with my wife and my daughter to Athens, Georgia, home of the University of Georgia. Interesting little town.
Dogs.
Go Dogs. It did seem a little like they were still kind of sleepy and mourning the loss and being excluded from the college football playoff. But interesting place nonetheless. You know, got to drive through some interesting parts of the backcountry in Georgia. So that was fun. Not a lot of big highways out there. So yeah, now I'm back resting and happy to be talking Bucks with you too.
Is your daughter a big Dogs fan? Is there any particular? Did she want to go to the Mecca, see the stadium?
No. It was basically like I was trying to find one weekend that Taylor and I could get away, and I was trying to find a city to go to, and this one happened to be like on the way, so we could also stop by and see some friends in Augusta, etc. Okay. But there was also an exceptional Goodwill outside Athens, Georgia. If anyone is into that, really, really good selection there. I would highly recommend making a trip down there.
All right.
I
was going to say, I couldn't really think of Athens, Georgia, unless you're a Georgia fan. Like, I couldn't really think of what you would do down there, but
there's not as many major metropolitan cities is what I'll say. And what I'm slowly trying, it's basically like, okay, I could go to Myrtle Beach with my daughter and my wife, but otherwise I just am going to be exploring some other parts of the Southeast for the next, 25 odd years of my life. Yeah. So.
That'll be your recurring segment, Adam. Will be Adam visits someone. We'll just unincorporated with Adam Paris, unincorporated Southeast. The only follow-up question I have, Adam, is: do you think the morning of missing out, the morning like the loss, the grief of missing out on the college football playoff, was greater collectively from all of the folks in Athens, Georgia, or your mourning and grief in the fact that the Bucks were not able to make it to the in-season tournament final?
If it's my personal mourning, assuredly the Georgia fans was slightly higher. If it was like, projecting upon Bucks fandom or Bucks Twitter, I think that was definitely higher than whatever was going on in Georgia this weekend.
Right. Okay. Well, speaking of the in-season tournament, the Bucks played 2 games this past week. We'll just run through both of them. In-season tournament, we started with the quarterfinals in Milwaukee against the Knicks. Boat raced them 146 to 122. We go to Vegas Thursday, 4 o'clock Central for 3 o'clock Vegas. Is Vegas Pacific time? Was it 2 o'clock in Vegas? I don't even know what time it was in Vegas. Early, very early in Vegas. We play the Pacers on one of the worst courts you'll ever see in basketball history. Lose that one, 128-119. We're kind of down throughout the entire first half, had a really good third quarter, and then got trounced in the fourth on the way out. The only other storyline that I'll bring up before I turn it over to what we learned, Chris Haynes of Yahoo reported from who knows who that Bobby, I believe the term was, passionately challenged Adrian Griffin after the game And then Haynes went on a video podcast or a podcast and explained a little bit more that it sounded like Coach Griffin said something along the lines of like, oh, the rebounding, like, criticizing the rebounding. Bobby Portis saying, hey, it's not all us. Like the coaches, it has to be like a two-way street. They like agree. Yeah. It's like a kumbaya. So it doesn't sound like, anybody came close to blows or whatever. Passionately challenged made it sound like a certain sort of confrontation, which in the after, like the further explanation, maybe not so much. We don't quite know. But that's where we stand today. It's been now it'll be 3 days of rest for the Bucks before they pick things back up against the Bulls tonight, Monday, when this podcast goes out. But that's what happened the past week. I'm going to go to you first, Kyle. What did you learn in the final week of the in-season tournament for the Bucks? What did you learn?
I can't believe I'm saying this, but the Bucks need Jay Crowder to be healthy and Pat, one of those two. Because the wing depth, which we'll talk about it more with Buck the host, but the wing depth is definitely suffering at the moment, and it's very clear defensively is kind of where it hurts the most. Malik Beasley is doing what he can on offense, but the thing with Jay Crowder was he could always guard a size up, which could allow Milwaukee to do more of the small ball, which I think would have been more effective against Indiana. But not having Jay or not even having Pat, so that there is someone that can try and stay with more of the Pacers guard players. It was very clear, Marjan has been okay defensively, but he has not lived up to that defensive potential he thought he had going into the draft. Andre Jackson Jr. is just not getting playing time for reasons we don't understand. AJ Green defensively is not going to help matters. Shoots the ball really well, but he's not going to help defensively. So having Jay would have been nice. And I think to an extent having Pat as well, just because Pat is able to kind of fight through screens. Pat is kind of able to try and stick with his guys. Yes, he will still do a flyby on any pump fake, but I think we're seeing defensively the lack of wing depth is hurting Milwaukee. Offensively, it's perfectly fine right now, but defensively, that's one of them. And the other one will kind of tie into the Chris Haynes tweet. I think a lot of people just need to go touch some fucking grass.
But Kyle, the grass is covered by snow. How am I supposed to?
Kyle, also for people like my father who might be listening, what does that mean? People need to go out and touch some grass.
Basically, everyone needs to calm down because after every loss, there is discourse on social media on whether or not Griffin is good at this job and should he be fired. And Kevin O'Connor has to put out tweet bait saying, oh, why didn't he do this? And then we have to have relevant and good writers have to come to Griffin's defense. There's people then that have to argue about Dame's mannerisms or what's going on with Giannis or what's going on with Khris. Yes, Khris made a really stupid turnover at the end of the Pacers game for absolutely no reason. Yes, there was a lot of questions on why Dame didn't get the ball more at the end. But every time the Bucks lose, there is this panic, and it's got to be you're either this team will figure it out and it'll be okay, or Griffin needs to get fired and everyone needs to get traded. And it doesn't need to be that. It's not that deep. Like when this report came out, it was like, okay, they had a confrontation. If anything, that's good. That's good for me to hear because that shows they still care. That shows that, losing in the semifinal of the in-season tournament, which was devastating for me, I will say. Not as much as Georgia, but it was still devastating. It's like Florida State missing the college football playoff, Georgia, me. I think that's how
in the hierarchy of pain.
In the hierarchy. But if anything, it kind of told me, okay, this is good. Like there's still people are holding each other accountable. It's not that big of a deal. Then you got people like, oh, where there's smoke, there's fire because of the third story that's come out now between Terry Stotts and the quiet or polite coup or whatever the hell dumb term it was. It's like, well, when there's smoke, there's fire. It's like, how about we all just calm the F down? Like, it's fine. It's December. This is not a make or break. Like, not every game needs to be a make or break. When the Bucks lose, you don't need to go into a think piece. You don't need to go into a tweet thread. You don't need to go and say, throw out declaratives. It's fine. And when they win, can you just be happy that they won the goddamn game instead of trying to pick apart what isn't working? So those are my two things. Mainly everyone needs to go touch grass, calm down, and y'all are effing annoying. The end. I will come back for these people later on when I do the film review. It'll tie in.
Jeez, wow.
Okay, that's good.
That is a plug. That's a really good plug. Stay tuned, folks.
If you haven't seen what I don't know if you saw the outline of what my film review is, that's what's going to make it even funnier.
It's a good plug. Okay. Going back to Kyle's original point about Jay and Pat, the other thing I should note about the Pacers game that is interesting that will tie a little bit into what I think Adam's going to talk about, or at least so I think, the rotation that Griffin ran out there. I think this is as close to a playoff rotation early in the season as we've gotten. Both Dame and Giannis play over 40 minutes each. Brook Lopez 36 minutes, Malik Beasley 36 minutes, Khris gets to 29 minutes and some change, almost 30 minutes. And then it's Bobby, Campaign, and MarJon off the bench. You wonder, like Kyle's saying, if Pat and Jay are both available, you probably don't play MarJon all that much, if at all. AJ Green and Andre Jackson probably don't see any time at all. And then maybe Malik Beasley sees some minutes drop a little bit as well, depending on what Griffin's doing. So interesting that Griffin went ahead and tried to give this a playoff feel, tried to see here's what's going to be a rotation. Is this our first official 8-man rotation of the season? I think we can. Okay. MarJon Beauchamp made the cut.
I'd say it's pretty close.
I was looking at the box score. I was getting excited. I'm glad you got there.
Okay, good. So I think that all ties back that these are the people around. You can understand if those other guys are available, where the changes might come. But I should have pointed that out as well when talking about the Pacers game. Was playoff feel, gave a playoff minutes at the playoff feel. It's a single elimination game, but obviously the fans didn't care in this arena. But in terms of the minutes distribution, very playoff-y from Griffin.
Yeah, I think the wing, I think Kyle's just right. I think Pat and Jay have to be healthy, and it seems like pretty clear that they will fit in. I will be curious how Griffin, I think one of the players I might be most curious about is how Campaign fits into the long-term plans. I do think he's been a good offensive spark plug and brings a little bit of structure to the bench units that are sorely lacking, but he just has so many defensive deficiencies on a team full of them. Those are probably cleared up a little bit by having Pat or Jay. Maybe Jay. I would say Pat's been a little off when he was playing this year defensively. I think he's been getting blown by a little more often than I would like, but I'm curious how he would fit into a lineup that has everyone up, everyone healthy and all of the wings in there. I still think it is kind of strange. Maybe it's that Andre Jackson Jr. is still coming back from injury. I mean, he's been kind of in the starting lineup occasionally, then not getting really any minutes here, all of that kind of stuff. So I did think it was a little interesting that he wasn't in there, even just to give Tyrese Halliburton like another look, another something to be able to see what they could do. But I don't know, maybe on some level Griffin was like, there's just no way we're going to stop them. We need to have everyone who's able to score a maximum amount of points in the game for the duration here. And Beauchamp was kind of the token wing defender. So I don't know. I think you're spot on, Kyle. We got to get some more wing health available with those veterans.
Sorry, go ahead, Kyle.
Oh, I was just going to say, it's just hard because it's like when you're looking at it, you would think that, okay, maybe with the scheme that Griffin wants to run, this would give, MarJon and Andre Jackson Jr. a chance to kind of really take advantage of this and kind of run with it. And we thought it was going to happen to an extent. Like Andre Jackson Jr. did get a little bit of run, then he got hurt. MarJon got hurt, came back, seems to have gotten himself into a rhythm. So it is kind of a bummer though, like defensively, we have not seen, having these younger guys off the bench really come and make that impact.
Adam, when you say that we would give Tyrese Halliburton a look, would that imply that we gave him a look at all? Is that are you making the statement that we give him a look? I guess
insofar as like my 5th grade coach was like, we're going zone this possession after he saw that someone beat me badly off the dribble. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. That was rough, but also, Halliburton's doing that to everyone. He's crazy good this year. So
yeah, I agree. It is a shame that the younger guys really, I think it's illuminating because we're getting a sense right away of what's the level they're at right now. I think Andre Jackson Jr., the jury is still out on what the level set is going to be. I think he still processes things really quickly offensively. He does that on the defensive end as well. But the issue that I see with both of them is not great, not great at navigating picks, it doesn't seem, in terms of maintaining contact, being aggressive on it, like reestablishing contact, the whole deal. I mean, this is not just them, this is everybody else. But as two of the defensive wings, in theory, it's not, the whole defense sucks, but they've just been okay. I'm trying to like think of signature defensive moments they've had. Like at least that would stand out to me as like, oh, here's these couple of great steals, are really disruptive. And Andre Jackson Jr. seems a little more like a chaos agent. Like he stirs things up a little bit more defensively. Marjan is kind of more there. Like he has lateral movement, which is good, but I guess a bit disappointing that so far, at least, they haven't really lived up to the expectations where, like Kyle says, all right, here, you knew somebody was going to get a chance throughout the season. Like we had old guys, these guys are going to take rest. They might pick up injuries, whatever. And neither one has really stepped forward, partially because of injury, but partially because I'm not sure if they're at that level yet. And maybe they will be in a couple months, but it's not an ideal situation per se with our young promising guys. So, okay. How about you, Adam? What did you learn this week?
Okay, so I'm going to make one quick note about the transition D. We don't need to talk about it a long time because I think we've all talked about it a lot. But I think one of my major points so far, and everyone who watches the games know this, is just like the team was pretty good at transition defense last year and primarily just not allowing teams to do it. And I don't know how much that is coaching where Griffin needs to tell them get back versus like don't shimmy after every basket or whatever, no shots at Malik. Sometimes you need to shimmy. But I mean, that to me is just like, that could be cleaned up really easily. And I was looking at stats on cleaning the glass. They have this stat that goes percentage of times a team allows the opponent to get a transition possession off a live rebound. Bucks are last in the league right now at 40%. So 40% of the time teams are running off a live rebound. And I went back to 03-04, and the highest I could find for another team is 34%. Any year. And the second highest
in literally 20 years of basketball, folks. That's what that's the implication.
So what if you think about, and then if you think about math wise, let's say, and I think there are more than 100 possessions per game right now because of how fast we're playing. But think about 100 possessions. That's 6 possessions where a team gets a transition opportunity as opposed to, just a half court opportunity. And they're probably going to be able to score a lot more points in the transition opportunity. I mean, that's just simple math right there. That to me is just, that just has to be cleaned up. Like, right. Like I find it unlikely that they will continue to have such an awful historical outlier of that. And I think Giannis kind of got to that point. I was reading the Eric Name article in The Athletic. Giannis had a lot of sort of candid comments that I think could be read one way or another, but one of them was like, we need to hustle back. And like, yeah, I think you do. I think like point blank, like it's pretty simple there. Like everyone just needs to get back. And if that's not cleaned up, like going into the Pacers game, we might talk about this later, but I was like, why? I don't know why we would beat the Pacers when like what they do is play super uber fast. And we couldn't stick with them last year trying to get back when Bud was telling everyone to get back and that kind of stuff. So to me, just so far the transition D, everyone knows it, but just to give people some more context of just how bad it's been, it's really bad.
Kyle, what are they missing? What have you been saying? What are they missing out there? What are the guys?
They don't got that dog in them. They don't give a shit.
Kyle he was on the front of this curve months ago, and the season's not even months long, but months old at this point. But he's been on the curve on this a long time ago. That isn't it bewildering though that like, far be it from me, I'm just some schmuck podcasting from my home. Like, what do you do to get professional athletes when even they in the post game were like, yeah, we got to try harder? Like how I'm so confused by the disconnect.
Well, it's one of those where it's just like, you would think after they keep going up and down the court multiple times, getting easy baskets, you would be like, okay, this is enough is enough. You would think at some point we would have gotten to that. Like it would click.
And at first I could have understood because we were like, oh, we're going to be the really aggressive turnover team. Okay, that's a different kind of mindset completely. You don't hear that talk as much, even if guys are now kind of reverting back to the mean, especially Dame, but that's more so because he genuinely does not want to run back. So he just does the half-hearted thing to make it seem like he's doing something. But since that doesn't seem to be the core, it's not even a core competency anymore. That's where I'm just so confused. So yeah, we don't have to talk, but think those are good. I mean, not good, not like awesome stats, but it's really interesting that we're historically that bad. So thanks for finding that, Adam. Adrian Griffin, thanks to you for uncovering that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think the blame for that is just like, come on. I mean, just run back, and and whatever Griffin might be pushing, like the turnovers, they're really bad at forcing turnovers now, which so that kind of went out the window. They're not going up for offensive rebounds, so that's not really an excuse either. Just get back. I think if they clean that up, I mean, think about 6 extra possessions a game where they can just actually get set in their defense. Frankly, I think that would help them quite a bit in terms of just really low hanging fruit they can clean up. My other thing, I'm not sure how much we've talked about this on the site and the podcast, etc. I'm just kind of curious because we got our first taste of Khris actually playing like real minutes. He's doing Khris stuff offensively for sure, but I feel like we saw this last year. I'm pretty concerned about the defense, right? Like in the final 2 minutes there,
we're past concern.
Okay, all right. I just wanted to make sure that we're all
yeah. Yo, bro, I seen Khris shut down dudes. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm in denial.
To me that's kind of the going to be one of the harder linchpins to get past when you're looking at trying to have defensive wings out there, and you need Dame and Khris out there at all times. You're going to need whoever that other person is to like really step up, because Khris is just it's rough. It's rough to watch him try and stay in front of people right now. So I don't know. Okay.
Well,
and I just wanted to make sure. I feel like we haven't said that much about it, so I think it's important.
It is important, and it should be brought up because Malik and Dame have gotten a lot of guff. The whole defense, rightly so, because the defense sucks. Like, you can pick literally any angle you want, and there's something to criticize.
Except for Brook. I would like to say Brook is like a godsend, and for everything he did in the Knicks game, he's been incredible. He's defending more shots. He's doing crazy stuff right now.
Yeah, it's the fact that Brook is getting pulled out on the perimeter in certain looks for reasons that continue to remain completely unclear to me. Outside of that just being a stylistic choice that Griffin wants to run out there. So Brook, like, for the most part, gets a pass because when he's doing what he does, he's been excellent, like way better than anybody at his age with his mileage should be doing. So we thank you, Brook. But anybody else you look at, stylistically, schematically, you have Dame and Malik. So you start with the perimeter problems. Khris is sure not helping necessarily. And then Giannis and Brook are kind of like, Giannis can kind of come or go with how much effort he puts in. And then even if they do put in a lot of effort, you're doing a ton of scrambling, a lot of covering for a lot of holes on the floor. But I don't know. This is like the personnel question. How much better would it be if we had different personnel? Like, could you overcome? Is it really like Khris is bad? How much of the percent of like a bad defense is on him? Like a certain amount. But yeah, I don't know. I think that's why it's good that if he tops out at most at like 30 minutes a night and you kind of fluctuate it, you might be able to use like a Jay Crowder to help fill in, or whoever you can pick off the bench to fill in a couple more minutes. The fact that we had to run him for 30 out there in full against a team that the Pacers specifically have blown up our spot numerous times already. So really like a really bad showcase for Khris, but yeah, it's a not great state of affairs. Last year, there's just a little bit, I was like, maybe it's still there. Maybe we can capture that old magic, and I think it's gone. I think it might be gone. And this is, what have we said over the years? Khris got that old man game. Well, old man and lateral defense that's not a match made in heaven per se. So you got to kind of take the good with the bad on that point.
Chris's athleticism is what I expected to happen to Brooke after Brooke came back from back surgery. Like, I was like, I don't know if Brooke Lopez got it anymore. Like, this dude just had back surgery, and all those concerns were true. It was just now on Khris and not Brooke. Brooke looks fine. Like, athletically, Brooke looks pretty good for someone that is 35 years old and had back surgery. Khris, it's gone. He's cooked. So, I mean, the Bucks have 3 bad defenders at all times, basically. It's not good. That's why they got to come with a steel chair and score 150 every game.
Yeah, that is the other thing, right? Like they're just going to win differently. That was the other thing I kind of learned, and I think we've all learned that. But like, it's just going to be a different mindset. Like we don't have to think anymore. Like, oh my God, the other team scored a basket. I think we're going to lose the game now. Like it's the other thing I couldn't get over really was, and I get it. Like, obviously, they screwed up down the stretch. This was the thing I didn't understand about the Giannis comments or even the blow up at the end was like, okay, yes, you blew this game in the clutch to the Pacers, but like we have a very large sample size of you destroying everyone else in the clutch and looking very organized and understanding exactly what to do. So any offensive comments, I didn't really understand. Like, yes, whatever Dave said about like, yeah, we didn't have a play or whatever, like, I'm sure there's lots of times where they don't specifically have a play caller. Like if Griffin's calling like a play call, like why would Dane be like, yes, you're right. Hold on, coach. I need to hear this and do this exact thing. Like to me, they've been really good in the clutch all year, probably unsustainably good. They were probably due to come back to earth a little. They just made some boneheaded mistakes and it happened to have more eyeballs on it. And so I didn't read too much into like the offensive issues down the stretch of that game.
Well, it's funny because last year the Bucks only scored like 8.6 points in clutch time, and this year they're close to 13. So yeah, the clutch offense is a lot better this year, and they still have about the same amount of turnovers. And I thought that was the part where I was like, oh, maybe that's why. No, they're just scoring more, and they're not doing anything different except scoring and actually not letting others score on them. I think they had a 1 plus minus in the clutch last year, and this year it is 2.9.
Like last year, whenever the game would go to overtime, I'm like, this is about to be some of the stupidest basketball. If we're gonna get this win, it's gonna require some of the dumbest basketball you've seen in your whole goddamn life. And I have no idea what our OT record was. Even last year, I'm sure it was fine. But anytime it would be like, all right, we're going to overtime. Let's be really good for 5 minutes. I'm like, I don't know if we got that juice. So it's definitely a different formula this year. I want to give a shout out to Joe Ma, who I believe is going to win comment of the week on the Monday Morning Media Roundup, to tie back into Adam. I believe after the Knicks game, he just said, or they just said, maybe we just need to learn to love offense. Maybe that is what we need to do. In the past, we've never had really, we've had a good offense, but not like something that I would say I'm proud of. I'm not watching the Bucks like, wow, I'm proud of this offense, the way that we're going about it, outside of Giannis doing amazing things. So maybe we just need to wipe the whole slate clean. Adrian Griffin is not a defensive coach. He's actually an offensive coach. And that's just, if we level set like that, things are going great. That's what ultimately hurt Griff, was like, oh, if he came in like, oh, I'm an offensive guy, we'd be like, okay, we're in a pretty good spot. How much has his tenure been hamstrung by being called the defensive maestro? Yeah, I agree with all you said, Adam. It's a weird world we're living in, that we are now like an elite offense, which is like good. I guess what would you know, it is fun.
We sound like we need like a therapist or something, like a basketball therapist to talk us through what this new reality is like. Like we're coping, trying to understand what it is. We've been hurt for so long, like with terrible, terrible offensive play.
The Bucks being really, really good on offense has given me more of an inflated sense of confidence in this team, because they can be down 20. I'm like, yeah, they'll be fine. Like before, I would say they'll be fine, but it required them hitting like 8 threes in 5 seconds. Now it's like, oh, how much time is left? Oh, they're down 20 in the third quarter. They'll be in the lead by 2 minutes left in the fourth quarter. It'll be okay.
We're literally one of the only teams in sports history that will go down 20 points and they'll be in the timeout. They're like, guys, we got them right where we want them. Like, this is exactly like we spot the other team 15 to start the game. Perfect. That's exactly what we're looking for to start the game. Yeah, it's like I don't know. Does it make me more confident? Doesn't make me necessarily. Yeah, it's more compelling. But and also, who needs more therapy, us or like the players themselves? So some of these post game quotes that they're throwing out there, like people.
Oh
Just,
well, okay. That goes into your what you learned.
It does. So I'm gonna contradict Kyle's advice to go touch grass. One, because there's snow on the grass and my hand. I don't want my hand to be cold. But I think I do want to circle back because it's not every day that Bobby Portis gets in whatever passionate challenges with his coaching staff, as far as I'm aware. Bobby's pretty much been a trooper the entire time since he's gotten here. So I'm sitting here, I'm reading this, I'm like, okay, Chris Haynes, Bobby Portis, who benefits from this? Who leaks it? Adrian Griffin's not leaking it. Bobby Portis is probably not leaking it.
I would hope he's not.
I would hope he's not. Bobby might be trying to force his way out, I guess. Okay. I mean, so Bobby's not on the list. So it's like, okay, Dame. And then people say that Giannis is hooked in with Haynes. I don't really know what I know the Dame Haynes connection has gone for like a number of years. So my mind jumps to Dame, right? Okay. So Dame okay. How do I want to ground this? Dame has now, for the past couple of years, become adept at working the media to first kind of like establish his legacy, be like, I'm not leaving. I want to win here. I want to do it right. I want it like his whole shtick was, I'm going to do right by Portland. I want to win here no matter the challenge. He's adept there. Then he tries to force his way out, and he tries to force his way out by using the media and then also trying to specifically say, I'm going to Miami. So he's not afraid to like play with the fourth estate if that's what it takes to have his way. All right. Fast forward, he goes to Milwaukee. It's not Miami. Let's all be honest. It's not Miami, but he's still a competitor. He wants to win. He's wanted to play with Giannis. We'll make the best of it. And then maybe he doesn't really agree with the way the head coach wants to go about things. And Terry Stotts is there, and then Terry Stotts leaves under strange circumstances. So I'm not trying to say that Damian Lillard pulled Bobby Portis to the side and say, hey, Bobby, take one for me, your boss, the mob boss, and go and confront Adrian Griffin. I'll leak to this to the media. I think that there's obviously somebody trying to take advantage of a bad situation to advance their own theory of like what the best way to remedy the situation is. And I wonder if the organization is like, maybe it's Dame, maybe it's not Dame, whatever the reasoning for this getting out is the organization temperamentally prepared to like deal with somebody who brings the media in on things that in the past either didn't happen or they did a really good job what's the constant refrain on Bucks Twitter, on any Bucks fandom? The reporters don't ask any hard questions, or reporters don't know anything. What's Eric Name doing? What's Jim? What are these people doing? Because there's just like the relationship with the team and the media has been pretty like, simpatico or whatever you want to call it. Like it's just not there. And now we're dealing with like somebody who's leaking to Chris Haynes all the time. Like, hey, yo, what the fuck? And then the next day, Chris Haynes like, and I see then the next level. There's this blowback, there's this blow up, and then Lillard's like, whoever, it's like, oh, kind of walk it back a little bit. We don't want it to be too obvious that I'm trying to do a coup right now. So, it wasn't passionately challenged. It was just a strong disagreement between colleagues who really respect each other. Or, it's just, I'm very curious how the organization is going to deal with this, because this is a different kind of star that we haven't had in at any time in the Giannis era, outside of the dudes who were malcontents. But like Chris is a trooper, Drew is a trooper, Giannis does his, I might stay, I might go, but for the most part, he's a trooper. Like, it's just, I'm very curious, that dynamic that's kind of really starting to set in now that, as Kyle said, maybe the three things, these are just things that might have happened in the past we never heard about, but we are hearing about them. And I think that is significant as to the dynamics within the team, and then how the team kind of approaches different decisions. Because it puts more pressure on, like, we might all scoff at Kevin O'Connor tweeting about like, oh, why are they running so much zone? But, these Jackals, they love a good story. And if somebody's out here trying to make the Bucks a little more juicy to advance their own means, like that has blowback, that has consequences. So that's me. That's my conspiracy theory for my conspiracy theory power hour. You guys are willing to refute it or even add more if I inspired, kind of got you guys thinking independently,
It's just one of those where you're like, who does it benefit? And it's like, does it really benefit anyone? Like, this doesn't benefit anyone because, like you mentioned, is that, like, Griffin's not going to want this league because it doesn't benefit him. It doesn't benefit Bobby, especially based off of how Bobby is playing. It's like, Griffin's talking about we need to do better rebounding, and Bobby, you're challenging him. Like, bro, you need to do better at rebounding. Like, the Pacers had God knows how many offensive boards. Like, that's on you as a big. Like, it doesn't make you look better. Giannis, not really, because this is someone that Giannis picked. So I don't think Giannis is going to want anyone. Like, I don't think Giannis is going to want to look like a fool. I don't know. I feel like this is one of those where it does wonder, like, what the hell? And, like, maybe it is day, maybe it's not. But at the same time, people also just need to find something and run with it and over-exaggerate. As again, it was this
I just talked for like 15 straight minutes trying to lay out my theory. So I am people. Like, I am people.
It's one of those where it's like it was a passionate challenge, and then how it's explained, it's like, oh no, this wasn't really a passionate challenge. It was just like Griffin said, let's do this. Bobby's like, we should also do this, and they're both like, all right, but it's a two-way street. Like Griffin saying it's a two-way street, I think was also kind of like, I can tell you anything I want, but if you don't do it, it doesn't matter what I say. You still have to do it, and vice versa. So I think for me, it's just more the also take a deep breath, go touch grass, and if it's snowing, get a shovel, dig a hole, find the grass.
Right, I'm out of here, guys. I'll be right back.
Good advice from Kyle. Again, to me, this one reeks of the NBA created this environment with the in-season tournament, and so it was ripe for something like this to come out, right? Like you have Amick writing in his Athletic article, just like a little blur about how the Bucks are in turmoil. I would say by far the best piece about the Bucks in the in-season tournament was whatever name just wrote on the Athletic, because it is I would say even more often than Eric normally does, and Eric always does great stuff, but like just long quotes from Giannis, just saying things really bare, like basically saying the bench sucked. Like stuff like that, that is more interesting to me than like Bobby passionately challenging Adrian Gross. Like I kind of imagine Bobby doing something like that, like every game or something. Yeah. He sort of strikes me as that kind of person. And if this was just a regular game, I don't think it would matter. So I'm this personal. If we're doing like, three makes a trend. This personal data point, I am choosing to toss out. The polite mutiny. That one, I don't know. I mean, sometimes like your boss tells you to do something, and you're like, this seems kind of dumb, but I guess I'll try it. And like, that's kind of what happened there. And I'm in no way saying like, oh yeah, I think Griffin is great, but I do think, I think like Kyle said also, we're looking, people are, especially national people with data in there, are looking to make something here because we don't have a Giannis storyline. We have a deeper connection to a star who has a better connection to the media. Like you said, Riley, we have someone who's drawing more eyeballs than ever. No offense to Giannis, but like Damian Lillard is a huge star as well. And I think a lot of people are tuned into them. I think a lot of ESPN personalities like to talk about him. So anyway, I think there's just like sort of a whole stew there. And if a team is struggling a little bit, like they're going to want to throw the chum in the water. Like, I don't know. I haven't heard anything about the 76ers. They didn't make the in-season tournament. Like they're doing fine enough, I guess. But like what do they have? Similar record to the Bucks.
Also lost this Pacers team.
Yes. Yeah. Also that, right? Like, so I think there's a lot of stuff around the fact that it was the in-season tournament finals, and you need something to come out of that, right? Now, I do think there's probably stuff, again, there's stuff that needs to be changed, right? Like I just pointed out, the transition D is horrendous. There are basic things that the team is rebounding. Yeah. You know what? Griffin should tell Bobby to rebound better and all that kind of stuff. And it's fine if Bobby wants to say, okay, well, you need to get us at least somewhat organized out of a timeout a little bit better. I think that's fine too. So to me, I like your conspiracy theory, Riley, and I do
Thank you.
think, but I also agree with Kyle somewhat. So what I would say is, I think there's a good middle ground though, where I think you're asking the right question, Riley, where it's not so much what Giannis and Dame are thinking, but I think it's what the organization is thinking, and we're not talking about that enough because they're the ones that are ultimately going to make the decision. Like, yes, it might come down to what Giannis and Dame kind of want, but like they've probably pushed like a lot of buttons already. Giannis probably got Adrian Griffin hired and all that kind of stuff. So ultimately, I think it's going to come down to what ownership and John Horst are thinking of how this season is going. So I think we should be asking that question more, even though we don't get as much public comments from them.
I want to apologize to John Horst, who I guarantee listens to the podcast, for serving as a patsy, as a unwitting idiot for your enemies outside the organization. And also the only two other points, these are just stupid jokey points. One, do you think Bobby's passionate challenge is say, you know what, coach, you need to take me out for the good of the team? Do you think Bobby was passionately challenging Griffin to reduce his minutes?
That's when John Horst said, I need you to keep him in for the good of his trade value.
And then second, okay, do you think maybe Joe Prunty has something to do with the leak?
Challenged.
Did that have benefit? I think we found it. Ding, ding, ding. I think we found our winner for who uses the term passionately challenged in quotes. I have to assume it was Joe Prunty. Joe, we see right through your stick. We see through the smoke screen as to what you're doing. So, okay, cool. Well, team hasn't exploded yet. Still functions. They're going to play tomorrow night, tonight, whatever, against the Bulls. So ultimately, everything's okay still so far. Still, okay. That's what we learned this week. A whole lot of crazy stuff. Buck the host this week. I had one about talking about the Pacers as a Bucks bugaboo. We're going to play the Pacers again on Wednesday, which will be hilarious. But Kyle actually came through. He got a question in from Twitter. I'm going to let Kyle take it away. That this person Kyle's going to give a shout out to would like us to answer a question about the team.
Yes. So thanks, Emergency P, for this question. It started with basically, is AJ Green going to get more play time? And then with talking with other people, I kind of warped into with Pat and Jay out, should AJ Green and Andre Jackson Jr. get more play time? And then we discussed it on our chat and Discord with MarJon Beauchamp. So it's kind of just a blending of should AJ Green and Andre Jackson Jr. get more playing time ahead of MarJon? I'm going to say yes. Because I the AJ Green has like X amount of starts, so there's some slight bias.
It's 9 starts. He has to hit 9 starts, and we're
not doing too hot so far. 20-something games in.
We're not looking good on in the over on that, Kyle. So you explain your position a little bit more, Kyle. So because in our internal group chat, you were kind of talking a little bit more about MarJon still having potential to get there, but how does that contrast with kind of thinking that the AJs should be kind of higher up in the queue of minute distribution from the bench?
Because I think the biggest thing is MarJon offensively has seemed to have made this leap, or at least is a lot better offensively than we realize, which is a good thing. But at the same time, what does AJ Green can shoot the ball, and we saw against the Knicks, he can shoot the ball, and he's going to try a defense, and he can catch fire, and it's a good thing. Andre Jackson Jr. might be the Bucks' best perimeter defender. He actually might be. It's like between him and Jay. So you have these two players who have a clear, they bring something really good to the table, as opposed to MarJon, who it's like, yes, he can score, but he's not the most efficient, and he can shoot. How sustainable is that? Defensively, it's not really that quick. It's not really that strong. So can he really do anything defensively? And that's not to say like he's a bad player, but I was saying like with his potential, he needs to first get to being a consistent rotation minute guy. He gets minutes. I wouldn't say he's consistent. If he can then get himself to that 6-man or in the closing lineup, that would be his next step. I don't know if we were going to get there. Just because defensively, it seems like that is what's holding him back, which is, again, weird because when he was drafted, it was in the belief of defense is what's going to get him play time. So it's kind of flip-flopped. But he doesn't have a tangible skill that is better than what AJ Green has in terms of on the offensive side. And defensively, not better than Andre Jackson Jr. And with those two, you have cheaper pieces where if they can become something, that makes it great. While with MarJon, it's like, yeah, you're on a rookie deal right now. You're going to want to get a new deal. And then we get to this Dante area of you can do stuff, but to what extent is that doing stuff for the better of the team on the court?
I think the way that I tend to agree with you, I think I don't know, you're so much of an AJ Green believer, Kyle. I mean, AJ Green's so the way that I would look at it is in the context of offense, MarJon is a beneficiary. He's become adept at paying off whatever the final move is, like whether that be the final three, like cutting, whatever. He's still not great driving himself, making the decision to kind of get out of whatever move he's done, but he's a good beneficiary of other people's movements. AJ Green probably has the potential to be a much better beneficiary just on like raw numbers, just like getting up threes, spacing, etc. And then not choosing to like go solo and drive to the baskets and kind of get stuck in no man's land. So AJ Green is probably better fit for the role that MarJon's in now on offense. Andre Jackson, he can't shoot, but he's more connective. He's like more of a connector for the offense than MarJon is. The mileage may vary if that's important, but I do think has a little bit more potential to be impactful on defense now. So I'd probably put Andre Jackson. I don't know. He's so not a shooter though. Like it's hard to find the right lineups to fit Andre Jackson in that makes sense, I think, right now with the way that Adrian Griffin's coaching. So I would give Andre Jackson more minutes than MarJon. I don't know if I go all the way to AJ Green. I don't think he's gonna make the starting over under, certainly. I don't know.
The season left, I swear.
Yeah, it's a very long season. You're right. I'm so conflicted on MarJon. I'm not that conflicted. I'm out on MarJon, but I'm trying to be fair in a public facing setting here to be okay with MarJon. How about you, Adam?
I would not put more AJ Green in, not because he's fine, he can shoot, but I guess to me, I think functionally, I don't think he's that viable in a playoff setting. And at least if he is, I'd rather just have Malik Beasley do what he's doing. And Andre Jackson Jr., I mean, I love watching him play. I think he's probably my favorite Bucks rookie in a while. Within like 2 games, I wondered if we just need to mainline this guy minutes because he's so clearly better at defense than everyone else on the perimeter. I think we were talking earlier about getting stuck on screens. That's MarJon's biggest issue. I mean, I will say, I thought in the Knicks game, I thought the Knicks game was probably the Bucks' best game of the season. I think a lot of other people would agree. But offensively, the flow was as good as I thought it's ever been. I thought MarJon did a good job on Jalen Brunson, actually, for a few possessions. And he was someone who absolutely carved us up the first time. And I think MarJon's taken genuinely noticeable steps from what I thought he did last year defensively. Again, he can still kind of just get collapsed on screens. So I don't know. I still see the outlines of a player there. He's hitting 44% on threes so far this year. I think he's missing. He has athleticism, but he hasn't applied it super well, I think, out there. So it's kind of neck and neck for me between him and Andre Jackson Jr. And I could see arguments for both.
The way that I would look at it is if you're looking from these 3 guys, find which of the 3 has the most potential right now to take like another extra step and be somewhat viable in a playoff rotation on both ends of the floor. I think MarJon's probably that guy. Like it's not fully connecting. It's not hitting all at once in the right way you would want, but he's probably on both ends the most viable of the 3. So in that sense, you would want to keep giving him minutes in the hope that he does take that next step. I think the lack of 3-point shooting from Ajax might be a little too much to overcome given the lineups he would run with. So I guess in that sense, I would continue to run MarJon out there. And also, if he looks slightly better for a little while, maybe he'll look nicer in a trade in the trade machine for other teams. Who knows? But I guess from that perspective, like viability in the near term for playoffs, Marjan's probably the closest of all the guys. Even if he does come together, you're not like, wow, the Bucks finally found that guy who's going to be Giannis's running mate for the next decade. I think we can say that ship is sailed comfortably. We can say that ship sailed a while ago. So, but if he can be like the 7th, 8th man, that's within reach. I think maybe.
Yeah, if he could be part of the closing lineup, I think that would be a win. If he could be in a closing lineup and be fine, that would be a huge win. And I think Andre Jackson Jr. has more of a chance to be in that than Marjan, only because when you get to those closing lineups, that guy is probably not going to need to be good offensively because you have Giannis and Dame and Khris and Brook all there to take on the offense. So I think in that aspect, I would probably lean Andre Jackson Jr. just because he's not going to be needed to do anything offensively. He can just make the smart pass or make a cut. But defensively, that'd be nice because there's 3 bad defenders on the court. That would take it from 3 down to 2 bad defenders on the court.
I can't recall before Jay got injured. It was him, Dame, Malik, Giannis, and Middleton. They were the kind of the pseudo closing lineup for a little bit there, right? Brook was sitting and Jay got thrown in. Does that ring a bell to you guys? Does that sound accurate? So in that case, it's like who in that group, let's assume Jay comes back, he's somewhat healthy, like he can fit. Who in that group does Marjan? Probably would Malik be the most likely, but it's not exactly a good like size for size. I'm just like thinking about him.
That'd be your closest,
him taking a leap into the closing lineup. I don't know. I guess like is it that absurd? It kind of depends. Pat's been iffy. It's an interesting question. I'm not going to say it's like completely impossible until he's wearing a Magic uniform in a couple weeks. But like up until that point, it's a possibility that things could work out well and he could get there, I guess. I don't know. It's like the most optimistic situation, but maybe. And am I crazy?
No.
It's okay to say am I crazy?
No.
Okay.
I had him in my top. I had him in my 8-man rotation proudly when we did that about a month and a half ago.
If I recall, I might be wrong, but I think you said that he was going to lead your 8-man rotation. I'm pretty sure that's. So.
I mean, I would say I've been a much more of a Malik skeptic, and he has opened my eyes. And I know Kyle talked about him as a fine 5th starter last week, so he has certainly exceeded my expectations so far. So I should eat a little crow on that one.
Okay. Well, thanks, Emergency P, for the question. I'll leave the other one because we're getting on close to an hour here, and it's just we can take the temperature versus other East contenders at any time throughout the year. So, any other Bucks thoughts from you guys before we go on to the miscellaneous section?
It's a bummer they couldn't win the in-season tournament.
Yeah, I think genuinely when we got there, had we won it, I mean, obviously I would have lorded it over everybody. I'm not on Twitter anymore, but I would have lorded it over people, and it would have been cool. Stupid court, but it would have been cool.
Yes.
Okay. Very good. Okay, onwards we go. It's miscellaneous and rapid fire. Kyle, you have us covered this week.
All right. So the first one, as it's getting colder, I feel like I've asked this, but is there a seasonal, whether it's a winter, Christmas, I'll say Christmas or winter, seasonal cocktail or drink that you lean towards in this time?
In this time of trouble that we're living through.
If they lose to the Pacers, I'm about to down a whole thing of eggnog. No, I have several. So it's warm down here, but I'm going to, on nights where it gets a little nippy in the 50s, I will at least I like to have 2 full cups of alcoholic eggnog. And that's about enough for the year. And then I also like Tom and Jerry's as well. But they don't have the mix anywhere really but Wisconsin. So I'm now making my own mix, which is not nearly as good, but I have to get that concocted this week and get some in the freezer for me. So
you're living every expat Wisconsinite's life arc of like leave the state. I don't have access to alcohol that's specifically in the state. Therefore, I'm making my own to overcome. It's a tale of resilience, self-reliance. I don't know, like I'll drink like a Bailey, like a coffee with some Baileys or something. That's usually like the craziest. Like usually coffee plus some sort of liquor is my go-to. It's not a holiday drink per se, but it's the only time I'll have a hot drink. Mulled wine is not for me. I'm not a huge fan of it. So like coffee plus some sort of alcohol, but I don't have a go-to drink per se.
Yeah, I feel like I go more towards darker liquor and just red wine. It's not like a specific like holiday drink. Like I'm not doing eggnog, or it's just like darker wine, darker beer, just darker everything as it gets darker outside. So that's what I have. The next one I have is, how soon after a snowstorm do you suck it up and go out and shovel or snowblow? I guess Adam, you don't have to deal with this.
Yeah,
anymore.
Adam doesn't do that anymore.
Like you
I
also
haven't
didn't
done
have
that
to
in
when you were living in
years.
Philly, but
I know.
Man, so you're saying like the snows, it's done snowing, like it's moved on. Okay.
Yeah.
Because sometimes I'm crazy. Sometimes I'll get out there in the middle of the damn thing, like start doing some early homework, get that first layer gone. That's normally though, I have to commute to work and I don't have a snowblower, so I have to shovel literally my entire like 40, 50 foot. It's not that. I mean, it's a long driveway along the entire house. I don't know the exact footage.
yeah,
But
it is.
I have to hand, and there is no yard on the side because it's just a house right next to us. So I have to pick it up, turn, and walk to the back of the house and throw it on a mountain of snow. I do the same at the front of the house. So I usually try to get on it right away. I throw in the headphones. I start up my watch. I say I'm doing a cardio session, and I count those calories I'm burning for the next. It usually takes me an hour and a half to an hour and 45 minutes to do the entire thing for a bad snowstorm. So I get out there as soon as possible, and I don't care how late I have to be out there because I'm not fucking dealing with it in the morning. It's not Future Riley's problem. That's my problem right now.
Absolutely not. I will wait 3 hours. I'm waiting a couple hours first, because the other part is the snow plow going to go through the neighborhood and dump it all at the end of the driveway? That is what I hate the most. I hate that the most. I despise getting everything cleared off, and then the snow plow comes through and just dumps it. I have to go back out there. So I wait like 2 or 3 hours before I start.
You can imagine my heartbreak when I get done spending an hour and 45 minutes. I wake up in the morning. I'm like, there's a mountain of snow and there's no way else out. So I have to go and get my stupid shovel. I mean, my heart aches in those moments, and it happens a lot, unfortunately. So I feel you, Kyle. Yeah.
Adam, do you want to answer, or are you just like, screw this?
Yeah, I don't do that anymore. I guess in Philly, I would wait for it to be done, and then there was so little. I would go out like 5 minutes after it was done and just like throw it on the side of my house, and that was about it.
Adam was living the lifestyle where you need a broom. He was like sweeping the snow away. That's what he was living. So, yeah.
All right. Is there a movie or TV show that you absolutely do not want to be remade?
How about Gilmore Girls, the remake of the remake? I mean, just terrible. I mean, I had to watch the whole damn show. I have to watch it every winter. And then my wife finally was like, all right, we're going to watch. Is it A Year in a Life? It's messed up that I know what the hell it's called too. And I was like, I can't believe they did this. I mean, I can because money talks, but it is some of the worst programming television has ever made. I hated it. So we need to not follow that anymore. They should have just left it dead. It was a horrible mistake on their part.
I don't know if I can have a better answer than that. Remaking the remake of Gilmore Girls. That's crazy. I guess if I had one, I don't want them to. I mean, I really like Mad Men, so I don't want them to remake that. I don't really even know what that would be, but it would be bad. So don't do that.
Madder Men, even more mad.
Yeah.
24 would be a complete disaster to try and remake. They can't do it, because could you imagine them trying to get the information, and in the OG 24, he's waterboarding. There is torture. Like there is every international law being broken. And then if you have to just like completely like sanitize it, it'd be like, this is not 24. This is like every other cop show that's existed.
No.
Yeah. And the last one, speaking of Adrian Griffin having a passionate confrontation, who would be the worst player to passionately confront you if you were the coach? Like if you had to think like, if you're just looking at it from a PR perspective, if someone hears this player passionately confronted you, who would be the worst one?
That is such a good question, man. Probably, honestly, public persona. You don't want Marjan. Everyone, I mean, because you're going to end up in the documentary. Somebody's going to film it, and you're going to be in the 2-hour summer documentary he drops. I think Marjan, his public persona is way too all over the place for me to stand him coming up and telling me that I don't know what I'm doing. But like, excuse you, young man, what are we talking about here? So Marjan would be my vote here.
I think I'd go Brooke because I feel like he's never involved in any of these sort of reports. He seems just sort of like a pretty affable guy, even if he's competitive, and he's also 7'3" or whatever, and so that would be really scary.
It looks bad because you pissed off Brooke enough for him to confront you, and you're physically in danger. I mean, you're in danger no matter what, but like even more than most. Yeah. Again.
I was going campaign because it's another one where it's like, I feel like if he's confronting you, you really have done something. And it's like the opposite of Brooke. Like he's a very small person in terms of basketball terms. Those, like, the smaller they are, the dirtier they will fight.
Yeah, you get campaign, and you're gonna become the 50 Cent meme. You're like, what do you say fuck me for? You're like, that's where you're at with campaign. And he starts confronting you. Yeah, that's a good point too. So, there's a lot of good candidates on the roster for that.
Yeah, and that's all for rapid fire.
Okay, thank you. Good questions this week, Kyle. I'm surprised we haven't. I know we've asked numerous times. We've come across do you prefer waffles, pancakes, or French toast? And that will almost inevitably come up as a rapid fire question again in the future. But I'm impressed we keep coming up with like things to keep asking every single week. All right.
Like, I swear we've talked about this one. I mean, we've done this for like 5 years. We've had to talk about this one.
Yeah. It's like Thanksgiving. What's your favorite side? We ask that every single, like, you have to include that, you know.
I'm hoping there isn't someone binging like our pod and like just listen to the
and they skip
just
to the rapid
just to the Christmas last week. That would
honestly
be bad.
I would love if someone did that. Just record every answer and lord it over us one time.
Yeah, you want to talk about Buck the hosts? They got the receipts, unfortunately for us. Okay, I got more fountain pen stuff. I got another journal this week. A sad report that I did not get a new pen for my first Secret Santa. I got another great gift. So this is no disrespect to the gift giver, but I kind of promised last week that I might get something to nothing. But I do have a new journal, another one. This is from the same brand as last week, Nanami 7Cs. This is the Crossfield. And the reason why it's called Crossfield is it has grid lines. Look at that. Now, grid lines, oddly enough, are probably the most popular way that people who like journaling are really into journaling. They love grid lines. I hate them for the most part. I usually like a lined or a blank sheet, but grids is actually probably the most popular format in the hobby. Why did I get this? The reason why is I'm trying to make this into something called a commonplace book. So this was something that was very popular back in like the 1600s and 1700s where, you know, maybe 3 people in the whole goddamn village knew how to read, and they only pretty much knew how to read the Bible. So what they would do, and, you know, books were expensive, hard to come by. You'd only have them in possession for a little bit, if at all. You know, what people would do is they would keep books in the house and they would write down quotes, normally from the Bible, but over time it became like other literature, quotes, newspaper articles, whatever. And they would keep them all in the book as like an easy reference to things. And I'm trying to do something similar, not taking Bible quotations per se, but I'm trying to be more meaningful of taking quotes from books that I read, or like I'll read articles in newspapers and I'll write in my journal like, oh, there was this really great article, blah, blah, blah. like, why not take the extra step and write down the quote itself, and then I can do like little book reviews. So it can kind of be a catch-all, but a little more purposeful than a full-on just like free-for-all. So the paper's great. Same paper as last week. This is actually white paper instead of the other one from last week. It's a little creamy. The other thing that I should say is Japanese books in general have very light gradients for the way that their lines are put down. So even though I'm not a huge fan of grids, it's not distracting whatsoever. Lays flat, the whole deal. So it's been good so far. I've only used it really for like 2 weeks, but it seems to be serving its purpose pretty well. So this will be just something, and I can refer to sometime in the future without any sort of like worrying about like reading an old journal entry. Like I would hate the idea of this. This is a lot more neutral, which I appreciate. So yeah, that's a crossfield from Nanami Seven Seas, and it's the start of my commonplace book. So thumbs up from me.
Why are grid lines popular? I still am not. I feel like I would hate it.
I think a lot of people, so there's a lot of people in the hobby that it's not just about writing. They almost use it a little bit as a scrapbook as well. A lot of people are like, oh, they like put designs in there. They try to line up, like they snip something out or whatever, and they want to line it up perfectly. And that helps out a lot. So I think that's partially why. And also there's a lot of people who are in engineering fields or whatever who kind of get into like keeping things written down by hands, or like there's like entrepreneurs, like this. People that are in the hobby are kind of like a weird disparate group, but they don't want to be restricted by having just lines, but they also want something to help guide them a little bit more than just a blank sheet of paper where you're keeping it straight on is on you. This kind of fills that need. But yeah, a lot of people love grid. A lot of people, which was surprising me when I found that out. But so yeah, that's my journal this week. Kyle, let's bring back that plug. Let's pay off the plug that listeners have been waiting 50 minutes for. What's your film review this week?
Paw Patrol, the movie. Why the hell am I watching Paw Patrol, the movie? Because I have a 3-year-old son, and he is really into Paw Patrol. And again, we were home for 4 days straight, so we watched Paw Patrol, the movie. It is. I don't give a damn about the movie. It was a typical kids movie. It did enough to entertain him for about an hour and a half. I'll take it. It's a 5 because it's literally a kids movie. Like there's not much to talk about. But the main villain, his name is Mayor Humdinger. He has beef with the Paw Patrol for reasons that I still do not understand. He hates them. He despises them. I guess he's the villain in like the TV show. And basically, he's also very conceited. He's very full of himself. He thinks he's smarter than everyone. And that is Buck's Twitter. Buck's Twitter is Mayor Humdinger. They think they're smarter than... There's people on Buck's Twitter that think they're smarter than you. Everyone seems to think they know best. They know what's going on. They're more plugged in, having beef with other people for reasons that don't make any goddamn sense. And that's all it is. That is what Buck's Twitter is. Buck's Twitter is the mayor. They're illogical at times. They're conceited. They have yes men following them around. And I think that's what a lot of people in Bucks Twitter want to have, is a bunch of yes men listen to them and echo what they say. And I mainly talk about the bigger ones and the ones that have all this clout. You're the same person. Okay. So that is why I'm tying it together. You're beefing with dogs. Like Mayor Humdinger's beefing with a bunch of puppies and a 10-year-old. Do you know how dumb that looks? You're beefing with them. You're trying to make this whole weather system. You're trying to make it. You got jealous of the Paw Patrol. So you decided to do this giant ass thing, and it makes you look like an idiot. And that's what Buck's Twitter's doing. Like, you're beefing with people that don't have faces to their profile pictures. You're beefing with people that also care about the Milwaukee Bucks. And all it does is make you look like an idiot when you're trying to gain this like clout and like have your little henchmen following you around. It's just effing stupid. And the movie itself, I mean, there is one part where one of the dogs, it's like a very heartbreaking story of like him trying to get over PTSD. So there's that, you know, if you want to have a relatable character, one of the puppies does go through PTSD of going to this big city. And yeah, Paw Patrol the movie, it's a 5 out of 10. If you have kids, 10 out of 10. It'll distract them pretty damn well. So great movie if you just need the kids to just sit down and be quiet.
Is Mayor Humdinger a full-grown adult? I assume.
Oh yeah, he's a
is he a
he's got
human?
this
Okay.
whole, like, mustache. He's
I
bald as hell.
recommend
Like,
Googling him, Riley. Yeah, it's a
Okay.
good Google image search.
Yeah.
Okay, so my follow-up question is, who should I feel worse for? The Bucks Twitter people realizing that they're Mayor Humdinger, or Kyle, who's at home on a Friday with the sun, and he like the vision of Bucks Twitter as Mayor Humdinger comes into his mind. Who do I need to? Oh, Mayor Humdinger. He so he's a Monopoly Man style situation is what we're dealing
Yes.
with here. Okay.
he is Mr.
Right.
Monopoly beefing with 10-year-olds and puppies.
Yeah. Okay. The main antagonist. I love that. That's good. Okay. Wow. Okay, I'll have to look into the Mayor Humdinger lore and come back next week with more thoughts on the applicability. I assume that Kyle's theory is spot on though. He looks the part. So
That's all.
Adam, is Paw Patrol popular in your household?
We haven't gotten to it yet. I almost stopped
Okay.
Kyle early on and asked again for people like my father who are listening and want to know the premise of Paw Patrol. Well, my dad might know actually. No, we haven't gotten there yet.
Yeah,
We're
Paw
stuck
Patrol, a
in-
bunch
we're-
of puppies going around saving. They basically are acting as the fire department, police department, sanitation department. Basically, they do every city. The thing that we pay our taxes on, they just have a bunch of dogs running around doing it for you in this place.
That's
Yeah.
great.
It's on Paramount Plus if you
That's
want to watch the
beautiful.
movie. So
Oh, okay.
Put it up. Beautiful. Okay. Weekly predictions on that. Now we'll close it out with the 4 home games, start of a 6-game home stand here for the Bucks. They begin tonight being Monday, guest drops against the Bulls, Wednesday against the Pacers, LOL. Saturday, the Pistons, who are now 2-20 as of recording. They still have not, I think we're getting up to 18, 19 lost in a row. And then versus the Rockets on Sunday. And I should note, neither the Saturday nor the Sunday game are matinee games. Technically, I believe it's like a 6:00 start and a 5:00 start, respectively. Adam, what say you for predictions this week?
3-1. I think you finally get revenge on the Pacers. Beat the Bulls, please. Please beat the Pistons. I don't feel good about a back-to-back against the Rockets. There's just something about that screams loss to me. So 3-1.
I'm gonna go 2-2. Beat the Bulls and beat the Pistons. I feel like the Pacers, the Pacers are gonna run at them again. That's gonna be rough. And yeah, the Rockets game, it's just weird. I don't know, something about that Sunday. It's a Sunday. The Rockets are playing with confidence. I don't know. I'm not feeling good about it.
I too am going to go 3-1. I think they will beat all the division teams, which is good. And then they'll lose in hilarious fashion to the Rockets. And that will, much like every loss that has happened this season, that will wipe the slate clean once more. And we'll be here Sunday night to record about the facts that everything's in turmoil, everyone sucks, and we hate the team. So that's my prediction this week, because that's accurate for every single week this season. So great. Can't wait to record with you guys and see it come true next week. Thanks everybody for listening to Dear Diaries Milwaukee Bucks podcast. You can find all our work over at brewhoop.com, Monday morning media roundup, Wednesday weekly wrap up, Friday questions and antlers is coming back as another regular feature again. Game coverage, outside of game coverage, all sorts of stuff. You can find us on Twitter, X, whatever it's called, all social media. And of course, please, if you like the podcast, give it a like on YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe, send it to your friends. We appreciate everybody who's listened, and we hope to see you again next week. See you guys.